Okay, so no, shall we
Yes,
start?
please.
Yeah. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my special pleasure to welcome you at this Zoom webinar, which is organized by Geocase, Tbilisi-based think tank. My name is Viktor Kipiani, and again, it's my special privilege to welcome all of you who joined us at this point. We have an exciting topic to discuss, which is already very highly on agenda over the last period of time. It's about Black Sea, and more importantly, it's about realities and opportunities. I very well realize, that the definition, the name is very broad, but I also realize that broad scope of the definition of the name of the seminar gives us a good, an ample room for discussions. I'm joined by really special people and special guests. And let me present Lieutenant General retired Ben Hodges, the Pershing Chair in Strategic Studies at the Center for European Policy Analysis. Welcome, General. It's my pleasure having you. And next special guest, Major General retired Vakhtang Kapanadze, the former Chief of Defense and military representative of Georgia in NATO and European Union. I'm not less privileged having my fellow colleague, Dr. Khatuna Burkadze. Actually, Khatuna is co-hosting this seminar alongside with me, since she represents the Geocase as well. So thank you so much indeed for your time. We've started on time, and we, as I've said, we do our best to surprise the Georgian audience to finish on time as well. So thank you, my dear guests. As I've said, the definition is broad enough, but that broad definition has its own reason and justification. The events which relate to Russian-Georgian war back in 2008 was in a way a first real salvo, messaging and signaling that the old order is started to be retailed and to be reordered. And since then, we witnessed many events, many developments, among them the milestone developments such as the annexation of Crimea, and the very recent one, which is agreements in relation to the conflicts in Nagorno-Karabakh. All this makes us to observe that not just the global order, but alongside the global order, the regional order, in a very peculiar part of the world, which is the Black Sea region and the South Caucasus in particular, has been put upside down. And I really very much like this connotation because it gives a message in a very precise and very accurate way. So I always repeat, and I never cease to repeat that those new threats and new challenges always present new opportunities. It depends on creativity of human beings. It depends on boldness of respective decisions, and depends of catching the right momentum at the very right juncture of history. So this is a brief introduction whereby I sort of, I tried attempt at least, to heat up the degree of our discussions. And that being said, again, my honor to present and to give a floor to General Hodges, special friend of this country. General, may I wholeheartedly thank you for all your efforts, for all your advocacy in terms of protecting, promoting, and advocating Georgian interests. You're a great friend of this country, and thank you for all you've done, and thank you for all you will do for years to come. So thank you, General, and please, the floor is yours.
Victor, thank you very much, and to Geocase for the privilege to be a part of this. I am an advocate for Georgia for a couple of reasons. Number one, I've met so many just terrific people, women and men who are courageous, who love their country, and are willing to fight for it. So from a personal standpoint, but also, and the main reason I wanted to participate today is because of Georgia's strategic importance, not just in the region, but for all of Europe. And I will never forget my first visit to Georgia. I was the commander of NATO Land Command, and General Kapanadze was Chief of Defense at the time, and he gave me the privilege to meet your president. Then this was about maybe 2013, I think, and I asked your president at the time. It was kind of maybe he thought it seemed like a silly tourist question, but it was my first time in Georgia, and I said, Mr. President, how do you see Georgia? I mean, how would you describe your own country? And he said, we are a European country that should be the portal between Europe and Eurasia. He said, we're not some post-Soviet republic. We're not some Caucasus. We are a European country that's the portal between Europe and Eurasia, or should be. And it just completely changed my whole view of the Black Sea region, the importance of Georgia as one of the anchors of this region, that even as a professional officer for 30 years leading up to that, I didn't know anything. I just didn't know, other than I could always count on seeing brave Georgian soldiers with us in Afghanistan. Other than that, I didn't know. And so ever since then, thanks to General Kapanadze and what I heard from the president, I've been an advocate for Georgia because of that. Now, probably three main points that I want to emphasize today or address is, of course, the strategic importance of the Black Sea region. Why does it matter? Why should the United States, why should NATO be focusing and doing more here? Why I believe that Georgia should be in NATO already, should have happened years ago, and why we should not be deterred from that. The Kremlin has no right to veto something that the people of Georgia and that the alliance or the European Union want to do. My second theme will be, what do we need to do to get the initiative? I love that you used the word boldness earlier in your introduction. That's what's called for. We have too many people who are too easily deterred or worried about provoking the Kremlin. The Kremlin has demonstrated they do not need provocation. I mean, everything that they've done, their invasion of Ukraine, their continued occupation of Transnistria, and of course, their continued occupation of 20% of Georgia happened after the United States withdrew its last two armor brigades. When we were at our weakest, when the alliance was at its weakest in decades, is when everything happened. So this false narrative that the West provokes the Kremlin is, of course, if I may use this undiplomatic language, is complete bullshit. And we've got to stop worrying about provoking the Kremlin. So how do we get the initiative in the Black Sea region? And then the third sort of point is, what does Georgia need to do? What does Georgia specifically need to do? So the Black Sea region, why is it so important? Now, of course, General Kapanadze, first time we stood next to each other on a map, we actually were in Ukraine. And he starts explaining, we were there watching an exercise in near Lviv at Yavoriv training area, if you remember. And, yes, and he starts explaining on the map the Black Sea region and what the Kremlin's trying to do, why Crimea, why Russia would be willing to incur the ill will of the entire Western world in the days after spending billions of ruble on the Sochi Winter Olympics, and explained the strategic importance of Crimea. It's not just the port of Sevastopol, it's the launching pad for everything that the Kremlin does in Syria, in the Eastern Mediterranean, in Libya, and now, of course, they want a seaport in Sudan. So this is all enabled by their illegal occupation of Crimea, and they knew that the West would really do nothing. I mean, we did nothing, and it's not because we don't care. It's because we don't care enough. That people do not understand. I'm talking about people in Brussels, in Washington, in Berlin, in London, in Paris. do not understand or grip the strategic importance of the Black Sea region, why it matters. And I think part of this is this competition I'm talking about. Almost nobody has any stake in the security of Ukraine or Georgia. If you had huge American, German, Dutch, and British businesses operating out of Georgia, for example, you can be sure that the parliaments and the administrations of each of those countries would be paying very close attention to the fact that Russian troops occupy 20% of Georgia, or that now we have Russian peacekeepers, and I spell it P-I-E-C-E, that are sitting in Nagorno-Karabakh. So you have Russian troops now in all three South Caucasian countries. This is not a good thing. This portal that your president told me about years ago is the only sort of east-west corridor that doesn't go through Russia and doesn't go through Iran. And now you have Russian troops in Georgia, Azerbaijan, and of course you always had them in Armenia. And this limits the economic development of the region. And when you limit the economic development, then the governments don't pay attention to it. And the Russians have pretty much a free hand to do what they want. So how do we get the initiative? How do we compete there? First of all the Black Sea nations have got to put their voice together in Washington and in Brussels and explain and build advocacy the way the three Baltic countries. I mean, right now, the US Congress, every member of Congress can look at a map and tell you Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. I guarantee you that's not the case when it comes to the Black Sea. The members of Congress could not go around the map and say, okay, Ukraine, this is Moldova, this is Transnistria, this is Azerbaijan, here's Georgia. They couldn't do it because it's not in the front of their mind. So Georgia and Ukraine in particular have to work together to raise awareness and understand the importance back in Washington and in Brussels. And you have to encourage investment. I have to say, I am still very, very disappointed that this Anaklia port project has never really gotten going. I know there's issues and problems, but if Georgia was serious about economic development, if Georgia was serious about becoming this portal that your former president talked about, you would have the port of Anaklia, if not already operation, it would be serious construction underway. But that's the last thing the Kremlin wants. The Kremlin does not want to have a big Western investment in Georgia because they don't want the West paying attention to the fact that they're still occupying 20% of Georgia and interfering with this east-west flow. And of course, they don't want their own seaports being bypassed. Let me close with this. What are three things that we could do to get the initiative? Number one, invite Georgia into NATO right now. And, you know, we have a precedent. West Germany came into NATO when East Germany had 1 million Soviet troops there. So there is a precedent for inviting a nation, even though it's partially occupied by Russian troops. So number one, invite Georgia into the alliance. Number two, we need a significant exercise that strings together or connects exercise like Sea Breeze, which is a Ukrainian naval exercise, the Noble Partner exercise that we always enjoyed doing with our Georgian partners, and the Brits are part of it, and this thing has grown each year, and the Saber Guardian exercise, which typically takes place in Romania, Hungary, and Bulgaria every other year. Turn these into the same scale as sort of the Russian Kavkaz 2020 exercise that's joint, multinational, and tests all of the different systems that need to demonstrate that we care about this region. I mean, in this kind of exercise of this scale has got to happen at least every 2 years. Army, Navy, Air Force, Special Forces, cyber, space, the whole thing. And then the third thing I think that would help get the initiative is investment of infrastructure in Georgia. I would like to see not talking about permanent basing, but in Romania, we have a place at MK, Michael Cogolnicianu Air Base, which is also a Romanian airport, international airport, and we have a logistics hub there. And this is what we use for moving people in and around the Black Sea region. I'd like to see something like that in Georgia, where it would be easier for U.S. Air Force, U.S. Army to come in and out, to have supplies there, to have a flag there, infrastructure. If Georgia would invite that, nothing big, but something that would make it a more present place and to have supplies on the ground, I think this would be helpful. And as a bonus, this is the last thing. The United States has got to back up Georgia on everything it does. When Georgia tries to improve transparency of elections, improve freedom of the press, improve transparency of government, the United States should continue to be there, just the way it should also be there when Georgia stands up to the Kremlin. The United States should make it very clear that we are with you no matter what. You don't have to be a NATO ally to have U.S. support. And I think things like, Georgia allowing Russian troops overflight to get into Armenia. This is something where I think the United States, if we were paying attention, we would have encouraged you not to allow that, and that we would have stood with you. All right, I think I'm right at 12 minutes.
Thank you, General. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is an evidence. Yeah, thank you, General. And listening to you, I again got to the conclusion that it's always enjoyable to speak with military people, because they speak right to the point, and they speak with all the honesty in their hearts and in their minds. So thank you so much indeed. You made very, very practicably interesting points and practically useful, just points for the sake of points. So thank you so much indeed. So it's my pleasure to go to Major General Vakhtang Kapanadze. Vakhtang, probably you would give some flavor from a bit more from Georgian standpoint, but as you wish. I mean, it's up to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. First of all, I'd like to say that for me it's always a pleasure seeing General Hodges again, and I'm grateful to him for his active position in support of Georgia's aspiration to NATO, always and everywhere. Today's topic, of course, it's very interesting, but at the same time complicated. So I'm gonna to be brief in my part, and I can say that it's the Black Sea region is today a complex security area in which protracted conflicts, interstate wars, and great power confrontation combine together and overlap in unstable and unpredictable ways. As I see it in recent years, the importance of security relation within the Black Sea has grown, especially as the region linked to the wars of Middle East due to the military engagement in Turkey, US, Russia, in Syria, and just stopped Armenia, Azerbaijani conflict war in Nagorno-Karabakh. I believe that it's the development of the concept of wider Black Sea security, which is quite important, this change of this terminology and using this wider Black Sea security region as an emerging hub of European security, as I think a major event in the first decade of 21st century. This process currently has substantial implication for global security, from my understanding, and in wider definition of this term, not only military field and traditional military aspects of security, but also important areas of energy and information security too. This process is taking place as a result of multiple efforts in the political and economic field in the Black Sea littoral states, and increasing eastward interest of the NATO and European Union, along with growing strategic importance of the Caucasus as an alternative implication of Europe's dependence of Russia's energy, garant of long-term stability and conflict management, and combating organized crime and terrorism. And also, as Ben mentioned, this a portal for transit democratic institutions and rule of law to the Central Asia. I think it's quite important mission of this region. But what kind of changes we have today? For example, Russia has spent 30 years trying to resolve Baku's territorial integrity problem, while Turkey has settled it within a month. For the first time in the last 100 years, approximately 100 years, Turkey has intervened in the regional affairs, which was considered an exclusive zone of Russia's interest. This is quite, from my understanding, maybe it's a quite controversial, but from my understanding, this is quite painful strike to Russia's regional authority. Personally, I believe that Russia has begun to weaken its position in the Caucasus, but again, this does not make it any less dangerous for small countries, even more dangerous. That is why it is mandatory for us to be strong, both politically and militarily. For Georgia, I think that it's very crucial intensification of NATO's policy of tailored forward presence in the Black Sea, involving expansion on development of maritime, air, and land deployments to reassure NATO members and partners in the region that NATO and European Union should continue sanctions on Russia also, same time. The United States, from my understanding, should activate its effort for increasing NATO's role in the wider Black Sea region, which is crucial in advancing security for Georgia. NATO membership is a great way for reaching its strategic end state. And Victor, if you remember, we had this kind of discussion, and we mentioned that it's what is exactly ways for reaching end state, that what is should be end state for Georgia. And we all both agree that it's NATO membership is a crucial and most important ways for reaching of state and state for Georgia. Georgia in parallel way should develop a close partnership with United States. In reality of near identical interests, both sides should coordinate their policies towards the region, take advantages of their partnership experience and roles. And it's our partnership, and we mentioned with Ben, it's many times, and I see our soldiers in Afghanistan in the field, combat fields. It's I don't think that we are just partners. We are brothers in arms, because we are bleeding, we are sweating, and we are fighting for world security together. This is very important. And final, just it's close my very short brief and my showing my vision. I think that it's, if Georgia, and I hope Georgia will join NATO, a new reality will be created in Caucasus in that time, which not only Russia, but also Abkhazia and South Ossetia will have to take it account. And finally, I'd like to give you one very interesting passage of interview of Putin's interview, which was done a couple days ago. Very interesting. Azerbaijan was reclaiming its territories, which were internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan's territory. In this case, Azerbaijan had the right to choose an ally foe. If I have not listened to the Putin interview myself, I would have believed that he was talking as he was not the one who sent troops to Georgia or in Ukraine only because they are shown in inspiration to choose Euro-Atlantic vector. I think it's today we have quite interesting situation, and maybe because of that quite dangerous, because Turkey today has managed to discredit Russia not only in the Caucasus region but throughout the whole post-Soviet range. This is my point of view. Again, it's maybe very controversial, but I think this is a real situation which is we have nowadays in Caucasus.
Thank you, General. Thank you for your insight. And indeed, you know, it's a pity that we're restrained in time because there's so many issues. And you also reminded us politely in a shameful disbalance, if I may say so, when we speak about disbalance on the NATO or eastern flank, and speak about disbalance when we sort of, you know, have this balance in terms of tailored forward presence on our side of the flank and enhanced forward presence. And still, NATO is struggling to take an appropriate decision, you know, and timely decision in that respect. So that's a big pity, if someone would ask me. It's also true that when we speak about Euro-Atlantic integration, there are many options, and NATO is one of them, I should say. It's not the only option. It's one of the options. And we at Geocase have been discussing on various occasions those multiple options. We've been writing extensively. Several pieces, I think, quite interesting pieces reflecting on various options would go to the public in the near future. But at this point, let's hear, you know, Dr. Burkadze's look at Georgia's trajectory on its way on the Euro-Atlantic integration. So, Khatuna, what's your take on the issue? Please give us your insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victor, for introducing me and for giving me the opportunity to speak about this. I'm really delighted and honored to speak about Georgia's Euro-Atlantic aspirations in the context of the Black Sea security. In years, Georgia aspires to become a member of the alliance. We have made progress in different fields through support of our partners. Annually, NATO positively evaluates implementation of the annual national program. The Constitution of Georgia manifests our choice, more precisely based on the constitutional amendments of 2017-2018. All constitutional bodies should take appropriate measures to promote the full integration of Georgia into Euro-Atlantic structures. Historically, NATO enlargement has illustrated that it brings security and stability to the countries and regions. NATO should remain an important instrument for the Western strategy in the Black Sea region. This is crucial for the concept of a Europe whole, free, and at peace, because the Black Sea region, whole and free, is an integral part of the European security architecture. In this regard, Georgia is a significant partner for the West due to the following reasons. First, in terms of the recent geopolitical shifts in the region, Georgia represents a reliable partner for the West. Second, Georgia, regardless of impediments, has made progress in a democratic transition and good governance and laid the ground for economic development. Instead, Georgia has made progress in the process of Euro-Atlantic integration, showing the strong commitment of the Georgian people toward the shared values. Our brave soldiers are maintaining international peace and security together with our partners. We have almost 900 troops in Afghanistan. It makes clear that Georgia is the largest non-NATO troop contributor to the NATO's mission. And first, Georgia's location makes it important for NATO. Georgia sits at the crucial geographical and cultural crossroads and has proven itself to be strategically important for both economic and military reasons. Georgia offers its infrastructure and logistic capabilities for the transit of NATO forces. The Black Sea security gains more relevance for the cooperation between Georgia and NATO. The analysis of the current situation shows that developing developing new initiatives or renewing the substantial package will not be sufficient. Georgia's integration into NATO should be accelerated to deliver the promise made at the Bucharest summit 12 years ago. In the context of the Euro-Atlantic integration process, it's essential to analyze the binding document, I mean the North Atlantic Treaty, especially Article 10 of the North Atlantic Treaty, because this article defines basic elements of NATO enlargement. We can read in this article, member states of the alliance may invite any European country that recognizes the principles of the North Atlantic Treaty and can contribute to the security of North Atlantic area. Georgia affirms on the one hand that it is committed to the principles of the North Atlantic Treaty, and on the other hand, it contributed to the European security architecture. And of course, key for achieving this goal is in the capitals of the alliance, because the alliance unites independent states that granted membership to the European countries several times, including the Baltic states. They reached consensus when they invited Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and I hope that they will give such a historic opportunity to Georgia as well. Among the states of the alliance, the United States is a stronger supporter of Georgia's full membership in NATO. The US-Georgia defense and security cooperation highlights we have a special security cooperation framework that aims to develop readiness and to promote modernization of the Georgian defense forces. Over the last 6 years, the United States has provided close to 100 million in security assistance to Georgia. President-elect Joseph Biden highlighted that NATO is at the very heart of the United States national security, and it is an alliance of values. I strongly believe that we will enhance our strategic ties with the United States, and we will continue to work closely with other members of the alliance in order to deepen our Euro-Atlantic ties and enhance the Black Sea security. In this regard, it's essential to expand joint exercises and develop maritime infrastructure. Georgia's membership in NATO means access to Article 5. That is a real guarantee of security of our country. More Georgia in NATO and more NATO in Georgia will not only enhance our security, will not only promote our development, but also will enhance the security in the Black Sea region. Thank you.
Khatuna, thank you so much indeed. You've summed up the way we've gone through on this in this very important process. And it's been a very helpful summary to remind all of us where do we stand at this point and what we're facing down the road. My dear colleagues, let's go to several questions from my side, if you don't mind, and my question to General Hodges. General, I'm not able to resist temptation to ask you, as a very distinguished general, several, I'm not saying, blunt questions, but very straightforward questions, because again, it's really a very unique opportunity. So before I proceed, very cautiously and diplomatically to formulating the question, let me once again, reemphasize that you've been advocating, for the Georgian case very strongly. I read and reread your various interviews where you're saying that we, meaning the West, should care about our strategic interests in the region, that we should defend it, that the West's interests should be clear in all possible domain. And it's really, I cannot agree with you more in all those statements. It's also a perception or misperception, and it's really very difficult to debate, which is true, which said that the West has abandoned the South Caucasus. And again, I'm not inclined at this point saying whether it's true or not. I always believe, that the truth is somewhere in the middle. So I think that this statement, has its own rationale. But that being said, what is missing, in the overall Western policy when we have this nagging feeling, if you allow me to formulate, my sentiments in this way, that the West is not as present in the region as it should be? This is probably a very broad question. And the second question, with your permission as well. NATO is an excellent option. But again, the witnessing a number of frictions internally. Should we be thinking about Plan B? And that Plan B could be some type of multilateral defense association, which would be premised on the geography of the Black Sea. I very fully realize that you have a great stronghold, which is Romania, but at this side of the Black Sea, practically the alliance does not have a meaningful presence, except for Turkey. And then, my next sub question, which is I'm very mindful, it's a complicated question. Turkey and the United States, Turkey and NATO, the way which seems to be very bumpy. Could Georgia, down the road, in one way or another, with all our appreciation of the great partnership which this country has with Turkey, and which NATO has with Turkey, since NATO is one of the biggest NATO member countries. So could Georgia somehow fit into the picture as if recreating a reliable safety locker connecting the eastern flank of NATO and the Middle East? So I realize, and I really am very sorry that I threw to you, the many sort of, the implicit questions. But again, this is my temptation. I still cannot avoid it. So thank you so much.
Okay, well, let me take a stab at addressing the three main questions, because actually all three of them are quite interesting and substantial, and I would like to explore them, but let me do just quick bullets on each one to keep it moving. First, what's missing is the United States needs a strategy for the Black Sea region. We don't need a strategy for Georgia or a strategy for Ukraine. We need policies for Georgia, policy for Ukraine, but those policies have to enable a strategy for the region. And I think that's been part of our problem. And frankly, it's also part of the problem of Black Sea nations, is acting as islands as opposed to trying to impress people in Brussels and Washington why the region is so important, and to encourage economic investment. And so there's a role for the nations of the Black Sea, just as there is a responsibility of the United States and of the West. And certainly the alliance is beginning to raise its sights a little bit about, okay, we are going to have to compete in the Black Sea region. We've got to find a way to get the initiative, but not just in military means, but in economic means. So I hope that our new administration will have a meaningful, well thought out strategy for what's our relationship with Russia, what's our relationship with China, and then let's develop a strategy for the region that has resources and consistency, not occasional, but consistency. Same thing with the Balkans on the other end of the Black Sea region. I'm very proud of the U.S. Embassy team in Tbilisi, the U.S. Embassy team in Kyiv. We have some great diplomats that work for representing our country, but they have not been given a strategy that enables them to work and stitch together U.S. contribution, U.S. efforts here. So that's what's missing, I think. But again, Georgia, Ukraine, other nations in the region have got to put their voices together to raise awareness and to make yourself attractive for economic investment. That, to me, is the biggest key. That's just as important as having any sort of military investment. Now, on your second point, does Georgia need another option? First of all, NATO has been around since 1949. We have been through so many different challenges, but our alliance has always adapted. And there's a reason that nations are queued up wanting to join NATO despite the challenges and issues, because at the end of the day, everybody knows, including the Kremlin, that the last thing they want is an armed conflict with 30 nations of NATO. So I think Secretary General Stoltenberg has done an amazing job of keeping the alliance together over these last few years. Even, Frank, to be candid, as my own president, has not made it easy. I never imagined an American president would question Article 5, but I think that we're beyond that, and our alliance is going to remain strong. So Georgia should continue doing what it's doing, continue working on the things where it needs to in terms of resilient societies, where Georgians trust their own democratic institutions. They have to build trust in that. Otherwise, you're so vulnerable to Russian disinformation. And having said that, the United States has many bilateral and multilateral agreements with other countries outside of NATO, whether it's in the Pacific or partnership with Georgia, partnership with Ukraine. And I think it would be very wise for Georgia and Ukraine, for example, to continue to build on the work that General Kapanadze had done for sharing intelligence, for exercising together. I always realized after my first visit to Georgia that people in Georgia and Ukraine would know more about what the Kremlin was doing than 1,000 American satellites could ever identify. And so improving the intelligence sharing and the relationships around the Black Sea region to include economically. For example, nobody in the Black Sea should allow any vessel that sails out of a Crimean port to enter another nation's port, because they're illegal. I mean, Crimea is illegal. If everybody agrees that Crimea is illegally occupied, and when he was president, President Poroshenko declared all the ports in Crimea as closed. Russia obviously continues to use them. If the rest of the world acknowledges or allows or tolerates Russian use of those ports and claims to exclusive economic zone around Crimea, for example, then we have in fact recognized or acknowledged Russian sovereignty of Crimea. This is where Georgia should help lead the West in saying, no way, no vessel of any kind, commercial or any kind, could sail from Sevastopol and go to Poti or Batumi, for example, or somewhere in Turkey or somewhere in Constanta. To your third question about Turkey, you're right. Turkey is the key in the Black Sea region. We have got to fix our relationship with Turkey. We need Turkey to play a leading role in the region as a NATO ally. We the West, need Turkey as a bulwark against Iran and Islamic extremism. And I think we've got a lot of work to do to rebuild trust between U.S. and Turkey, the West and Turkey. Right now, it's as bad as I've seen it. But I think we're being too short-sighted. Look, I don't even want to think about NATO without Turkey. I don't even want to think about it. Administrations change, but geography does not change. And so we should be patient, have a long-term view of Turkey. Don't focus on who the current leadership is, have a long-term view, find ways to rebuild trust. Now, look, I don't excuse any bad choices by Turkey. This S-400 thing is a terrible example of it. But when I visited Ankara, I was in Izmir for 2 years. And I remember visiting, I went to a meeting in Ankara and I had a chance to meet with the J5 of the Turkish General Staff, the guy who's responsible for all plans and policy for Turkish Defense Forces. I said, sir, good morning. How's it going? He said, Ben, I tell you, I wake up in the morning. This is a quote. I wake up in the morning. I've got Russia to the north, Iran, Iraq, Syria to the south, the Caucasus to the east, and the Balkans to the west. It's a hell of a neighborhood. And so, you know, I think we could be smarter by looking at the world, how Turkey sees their surroundings. And if we took the Black Sea, took the map and moved the Black Sea up to the middle of the map, it would change how everybody looks at the region. Usually, and I'm sure Vaho could confirm this, any NATO headquarters you go into, Turkey and the Black Sea are at the bottom right-hand corner of the map. And that means it's away from the center of thinking. Change the map and it'll change your thinking.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I completely share the point that we should not be driven by political temptations of any given administration. And the quotation which you mentioned made by the Turkish general again reminds us that rationality, pragmatism, long-sighted approach, they matter a lot, and we should be very much focused, on strategic interests and not being biased, by any whims or any ups and downs, by a specific politician on any side of an aisle. So thank you for that very helpful reminder. Khatuna, let me go to your place, and while you've been speaking about the annual plan, the Georgian Annual National Program, excuse me, so which serves Georgia's integration into NATO. Still, in few words, please, because I'm very much mindful of time, and still one question to Vakhtang left. How do you assess the dynamics of NATO-Georgia cooperation? What is your view?
Thank you for this question. We have all practical instruments. We have annual national program, NATO Georgia Commission, the substantial NATO Georgia package. The substantial package aims to develop defense capabilities of Georgia. At the Warsaw Summit, the allies welcomed progress made in implementing the substantial package. For the first time, NATO Georgia Commission during that time was conducted at the foreign ministers level. They encouraged Georgia to continue effective implementation of all practical tools to come closer to the alliance. At the Brussels summit, NATO and Georgia, both parties, adopted a joint declaration, and this declaration highlighted that we have all practical tools for the membership. They appreciated Georgia's contribution to NATO's missions and operations as well. At the same time, I would like to emphasize that in April, regardless of coronavirus pandemic, regardless of the global crisis, NATO made a very important decision on new measures that include a greater involvement of Georgia in NATO's exercises in the Black Sea region on the one hand, and on the other hand, these measures include enhancement cooperation in terms of countering hybrid threats. States. And this decision has illustrated that regardless of challenges, Georgia remains on the agenda of the alliance. And I strongly believe that we will enhance these relationships and we will have real opportunities after finishing these practical tools to become a full member of the alliance.
Thank you, Khatuna. Thank you. And Vakhtang, a question to you. And I realize very well that it's a fundamental, it's monumental question, not just fundamental, but monumental question. And I'm pretty mindful that it's a very short span of time for you to address the question, but still realizing that you are a true professional and you are, in my own words, you're a great patriot, of this country. What is your the insight, your takes on the recent conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh? What the lessons are in terms of our own security? And when I speak about our own security, it's not just about our own national security, but probably in a broader term, our collective security, because we have this Russian-Turkish bromance, which still, entails some question marks. So what are the safeguards for us to increase, our security, our safety, defense-wise or in any other manner? So again, I apologize. It's really a big topic, but just a few quick points, if you may.
Thank you, Victor. It's a very interesting question. Of course, I will try to also be brief. Let's imagine map of Caucasus. So 7th Gudauti military base, 4,500 personnel of Russian troops. 4th Tskhinvali base, military base, 4,500 military personnel. Both are located in Georgia. 102nd military base in Gyumri, 3,000 personnel. Now in Karabakh, 2,000 personnel. And additional of them, 4,000 FSB border guard who are guarding Armenian border, etc., etc. Additionally, the Russia will occupy important strategic position not only inside of Karabakh but also on the 5-kilometer wide Lachin corridor, and the most important thing is road connected Azerbaijan to Nakhichevan alongside of Iran border. See that it's saying that current reality is a Russians, no doubt, success. I will be carefully. Considering that Russia's military base is already located in Armenia and FSB already we are located also in Armenia, guarded Armenia's border. From military point of view, operational, it is not big change for military balance. But again, this most important thing is the political picture and picture beyond all BS. For example, I just pointed a couple of things. This first, Turkey entered the region with ambition, strength, and the right moment in mind. Russia has shown that does not have the power and will to confront Turkey. Second, Turkey has managed to discredit Russia not only in the Caucasus region but throughout the world's post-Soviet region. Third, Russia is not longer a reliable ally of either Armenia or Azerbaijan. Fourth, this war has shown to Russia-related countries how unsafe it is to be under Putin's umbrella and how necessary it is to seek another ally. I can say that Russia has suffered strong geopolitical defeat. Since military power and the priority of its use have for many years been Russian trademark and main argument in the post-Soviet space. But again, I'd like to remind everybody that it's wounded bear more dangerous. And it means that we should be more smart, more clear, more stronger, and we need more support and strong and active support from our allies. Of course, US first of all, and of course NATO first of all.
Thank you, Vakhtang. Thank you. That's very interesting response from your side. By the way, you also reminded me when I'm asked, who won, who gained, in Nagorno-Karabakh recent flare-up, and I'm asked, has Russia gained? My counter. The question is, would you like me to give a response within a short time framework? Because in short perspective, a response could be one, and in terms of longer perspectives, response could be different. So it always depends, Sometimes, what lays at the surface could be much different, at its bottom, and that is very important for us, when we speak about a proper analysis, because sometimes we lose a sense of good analytics. And that's really the traditional illness, on the Georgian side, I should confess. So thank you so much indeed. We made some good points, and one major point to wrap up our discussions, that the regional reordering goes on. I fully appreciate, we all fully appreciate the pandemic piles up, tons and tons of new challenges, but we should not forget, and we should keep vigilance globally, we should keep vigilance regionally, because that reordering, could go either way. It could worsen, it could become better off. So, but for the second scenario, both ends, the Georgian end and the West end, should move to each other, towards each other, with required tempo and with required vigor. Otherwise, we are risking lagging behind the developments. And what unites us, in this critical scenario, that either we win jointly or we lose jointly. There is no other third option or any other alternative. That is very important for us to remember. So thank you so much indeed. I'm also very glad that on top of interesting discussions, we're completing on time. That means that we made a next step, towards integrating with NATO. So my congratulations to my Georgian fellows and to our Western fellows. So thank you again, generals. You've been very special guests, and on my personal behalf and on behalf of Dr. Burkadze, on behalf of Geocase, we welcome you. We wish you and your families good health, and all the best, and we hope to meet you again. So thank you so much, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.